Welcome back to Making Connections, the show where a guest and I take a deep dive into a newly released machine video by reacting to it and then overanalyzing it literally frame by frame. In this episode, we're taking a look at the Vsauce Machine by myself, and joining us on the show today, we actually have a very special episode because we are joined by I'm one of the four. We're joined by three other members of the Pool Party Machine. So specifically, Doodle Chaos over here, who will be doing the analysis with me. So we got Mark, we got Steve, and we got Joel. So are you guys ready to start?
Yes.
I guess I should also preface this by saying Joel has seen this, so his reaction is going to be a little bit less intense.
I'm so allergic to cats.
So...
That's good, because this isn't a cat.
Yeah, this isn't a cat. I haven't had a cat here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, are we ready to start?
Yeah.
All right. Anytime you're ready.
Yes. Boom. This machine is a one-ball path. Oh, wow, I didn't know you made a one-ball path. Okay.
It says applause.
One-ball paths are not easy. Maybe it's less Michael here. I like that pop-up. Ooh, spinny. Oh, I like the cup dumping in that ball out. Oh, Hexbug. Throwback to Sprice Machine's 400 subscriber special.
Yeah.
I remember that.
There's your Rubik's Cube solving.
Oh, yeah, that one. Oh, yeah, that hammer thing. Double use.
What on earth is happening?
Things are happening. Newton's cradle is gonna go.
The straws. That's a lemonade machine reference.
What is it? Oh, the straws? A little bit.
Oh my gosh, that was a lot to take in.
Yeah.
I really hope that Michael responds to this.
Yeah.
That's the idea. I hope.
There's a lot of really cool things that happen in this machine that I didn't see on the first round.
Is that why you were asking me about?
That's
building
exactly
job
why.
plan?
Yeah.
Oh. I wish they still had that because this would definitely make it out.
Oh, I'm sure. Oh, applause.
Subtitles.
Yeah, for those who are confused, there was subtitles.
Ooh.
Yeah, that was my favorite thing.
The kendama?
hammer.
Yeah.
Kendama thing, yeah.
I think that was my favorite.
Cool.
Bringing in the
That's
gears.
my favorite, yeah.
It's helpful to have multiple replays
there's
because
so
it
many
all
little
happens so fast.
Vsauce Easter eggs that I didn't notice.
Yep. Yeah.
Decorated.
Well, when I do the machine has a screen, like, there's a good, like
I
second
did
or
not
two
see
overlap
much
between
face, yeah.
shots. Which is on purpose.
That subtle triple auto tilt, though.
Yep.
Oh, slime. Wow,
Wait,
how did
that
I not
happened?
see that?
You didn't even see it
I
the
didn't
first
see
time.
that. No.
No,
Yeah.
there was like not in the first
Oh, wow.
first.
Yeah, we can pause it here, though. That's everything.
Cool.
Yeah. So first, we can pause it. Yeah. First thoughts, I guess.
The applause subtitle should have came in now.
Yeah.
I don't think you could have fit anything else on there if you tried. I don't.
Yeah.
How many
As
layers?
always.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Wait, was the slime part the finale?
Yeah, that was the goal.
How did we not? No one noticed it.
I
on the original.
I noticed it the first time.
Yeah,
It
I
covers
don't know.
half the ball. Yeah.
The whole
we just
thing.
got
It's like a
over-
giant
We just
cassette
got
tape
overwhelmed. But wait a
Yeah.
second. What type of slime was that? Because that went fast.
It's
Like,
like
not the one from Housewife.
no. It's definitely not. It's washable paint, like like
Oh, it's paint. Okay.
it's just like kindergarten paint, like school paint, but it's mixed with
Nickelodeon slime.
a little bit of water to make it a little bit less viscous.
Nickelodeon slime trademarked.
Yeah. All right. So
Vsauce is true.
on to the analysis. All right. So here we are at the analysis point. So this is actually a few days later. So hopefully you can still remember everything that we just saw. By the way, I'm pretty sure this is the most you've ever talked on camera publicly. I know. is pretty exciting. First thing to notice, I guess, just the intro. So you can look at the TV. We have a TV back here.
Oh, okay, yes.
The first thing to notice is just the fact that, like, I started it and ended it with, like, the normal Vsauce intro and outro.
His catchphrase.
Yeah. So it kind of a full circle sort of thing. And then, of course, the one ball path, it's the brain candy ball. You know about the brain candy, right?
Oh, did you sign up for or did you ever go to one of those live shows?
I went to one of the first ones.
How was it?
Pretty enjoyable. It's definitely more geared towards a younger audience, but, like, I mean, it's Vsauce, right? Like, it's fun to watch. So,
was that your first time, like, seeing Michael in real life?
yeah, first and only. I've never met him anywhere else. Have you met him before?
No, I've never seen him.
Okay, because I know you went to VidCon. I don't know if he was there.
I think there was probably a chance to see. I think Jake was there, but there was too many things going on. I didn't have time, but I would have liked to see him.
Yeah. So this is at the end of the show, they have, like, one of those air cannon things where they just load up a garbage pail full of ping pong balls, and they just, like, launch it into.
And
the
that's
audience.
how you got that.
Yeah, they literally just say everyone can go just take as many as you want, and I'm just like, hey, that sounds like something I want. So I just took like 6 or 7 of them, and then that came in handy actually for the fact okay. So throughout the whole building process, I was using one of the balls to test everything, just so that because it's a one ball path, every trick uses that ball.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time I was done, the words had completely worn off of that ball.
Oh.
So it was just whatever that color is,
You
just
had
like
to
a weird
replace it?
tan. Yeah, you couldn't see what it said anymore. So I just grabbed another one and used that. Luckily, it wasn't. They're all the same, so it didn't matter. But
do you like Vsauce as a whole? Like, do you listen to the Create Unknown podcast?
the machine itself is only Vsauce 1.
Okay.
But I do watch a lot of the other stuff as well.
Because I bet they would love. I know they have like a Discord now.
Yeah.
I'm sure if you posted it there, they'd be like, oh.
Yeah, I thought about it, but I just haven't done it yet, and I was kind of like, it's not really about Create Unknown. I don't know.
I think they like all of Vsauce stuff.
Probably. All right, let's move on to the actual mechanics of it here. So starting the machine was actually tougher than it looks, because I'm like holding the camera with my right hand, and like or holding the camera with my left hand, and my right hand is reaching over, but I'm looking at the screen instead of the real ball, so it's tough to see.
To keep it steady.
And keep it steady, yeah. There's a lot of work, and every reset has to position the logo perfectly facing the camera. Also, the stand that it's on is the gyroscope stand. It's like what you'd typically put a gyroscope on.
Oh, okay.
So
what take is this, too?
191.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. So, first thing is the track gets used later. Then knocks this out of the way. It's just like a lever that's holding the train back.
Okay.
So the train goes down. The train has like
I can't believe, like, watching this in full speed, I didn't even notice this happening.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. So actually, if you want to drive and go ahead and just kind of narrate it as you go, it's a little bit more fun when I'm not just explaining things and you're trying to actually figure things out as they happen.
Okay, so we're in the train, coming around town. Oh, Mike's gonna fall.
Yeah.
Looks like we're about to make a collision.
Yep. So we're coming into the station here.
The Thomas the Tank Engine station.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wait,
so
how is it flying out?
it's just there are magnets here. The magnets there are magnets on the train and in like the little holder for it. So literally just the impact of it suddenly hitting the magnets is what's making the ball jump around.
I thought it was supposed to fly out.
It's
Okay.
I was trying to minimize that as much as possible. That's why the yellow blocks are there.
Okay, we're good.
Yeah. So it's actually it also knocks off a weight off the table.
Oh,
It's tough to
control.
see. But yeah, the
Oh
weight
my
just pulls
God.
this out of a clothespin. Yeah.
How is that so accurate?
So it's not like totally accurate.
It's just from that little white piece getting pulled down?
Yeah, so you can kind of see the weight, maybe. It's tough to see the weight, but there's like a barrel weight, one of the ones we use. It's in the broom.
Yeah.
Okay, for those of you who don't know, this is on the set of Vsauce Machine 2, so if I reference things like, oh, it's just in the broom over there, That's what I'm talking about. So, barrel weight. And this is just a white connects rod just kind of jammed into the opening of a clothespin, holding it like open. So when it gets removed, it's like the spring is just popping the other end out. And that's why this is like a basketball hoop sort of thing, this little white thing, the ring that it's holding. There's a hole at the bottom, so that's where it's hitting it. You can kind of tell in this frame that it's a basketball hoop. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like from a toy basketball set, I think. So it launches it from the bottom. And, like, it looks really accurate, and it is. Like, clothespins are by far the most accurate short-range launch you can buy. No doubt about it. But that isn't to say it never failed. I mean, obviously it did every now and again. But out of the 190 that I had, I would say maybe 30 were caused by that. So, like, think about it. That's like 160 out of 190 where the launch just worked perfectly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I saw a little drop here.
Yep.
And it's gonna do some... I don't know what this is.
So, I guess you could call it a... I've been calling this mechanism a flexing parallelogram. Just the idea of, like, two surfaces that stay in parallel as they rotate around.
Flexing parallelogram.
Yeah, because, like, this and this are always parallel. Like, the track remains parallel as it rotates. So
and you're also flexing by doing it.
Yes. Thanks, Mark. Yeah, so this came from this cipher wheel trick was one of the first things I ever made for this machine. So it's basically just the motion of it kind of zooming across like that. But you need this elevation. You need the ball to get to this top part. Like, you need to get up that high somehow. And my solution for that was initially the launch.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But then I'm like, it lands here, but that's still not quite enough. So I need to lift it again. So then this was kind of a mechanism where I'm like, okay, I need to get from the box and then raise it up even higher. How do I do that in an interesting way? So this was my solution for that, of like having it roll into a track on the other side and then lifting that track up above the initial landing point of the launch. And then this is a mechanism as well where it flexes the parallelogram, but the same string pull is also tilting the box. So the same string that pulls this red rod here, is also the same string that tips the box over. Yeah. So if we go into here, we can see even better once it loads. So this is how the whole mechanism here works. You've got, that's the domino that falls off, and right now it's basically just sliding this red connects piece, and this is an off-table weight, so the weight that actually moves the track upward is already off the table. So this just is holding it in place, and the red connects there. So we have got a connects lever that slides that out of place, and then the off-table weight takes over to lift it up, and then you can see it's kind of pulling it upwards, but then it's also pulling it to the side. Right, so that's what tilts the box as well. So it does both with the same string movement.
Yeah, I think it's impossible to figure that out without seeing that angle.
Yeah, which is the whole point of the machine as a screen link segment, because this is like the really nitty-gritty intricacies that you would miss out on otherwise. And literally the whole point of this show is to talk about this stuff. So obviously this is... Yeah, go ahead.
I can't tell how reliable that would be.
This part?
Yeah.
Literally the most unreliable part was just the fact that it bounces out a lot of the time up here at the top, which is why there's so many cards there to prevent that. You can kind of see all the cards that are there.
So we're above the Ouija board circular.
The Ouija board?
And...
Well, I think someone in the comments thought that I was a Curiosity Box subscriber because they saw the cipher wheel.
That's where you got it from?
No, it's just a printout. The product display image is almost perfectly dead on. It's not like at an angle or anything, so you can just basically print that photo out. And that's what I did. And I just mounted it on the gear.
Alright, so we're abandoning the Curiosity Box.
Yes.
And we're flying.
So this is one of the centerpiece tricks of the whole machine.
Okay, so it's spun. This is 180.
Yeah.
This is like skateboarding tricks.
So 180 plus
270.
Yeah, 270.
Completed 270.
Completed 270. So this trick of like the gear on top of another gear at a 90-degree angle is already just like a fixed version, like an adapted version of a trick I made a long time ago in Domino's Machines round 4. Let's see if we can find it. But it had the same motion. It was just really messy, and I wasn't able to actually constrain the motion to look really nice. So it was just kind of flopping around and really messy looking. So this time it's fixed. This one, it's very constrained in its motion and only can move in a certain way. And that's because of another flexing parallelogram. This never involved the cipher wheel at first either. This was kind of a secondary addition when I realized, like, hey, I'm looking for more themed objects to use. What could go on this gear? Or actually, I think it was where could the cipher wheel go? And then I started looking for circular objects and realized that this would be pretty much perfect because it's already doing a rotation motion, which is kind of like what you'd use the cipher wheel to do. Like, there are a bunch of things going on with the weight system of how this is actually able to move. So we've got one off-table weight, which is this string from here all the way down to here. And you can sort of see it. I don't know if my computer will be able to handle this. Okay, so that's what's already pulling it, but it's not quite enough to pull by itself. It needs to be pushed a little bit before it starts to take over, right? And then, so that goes until this piece of tape on the string reaches this point. So you can sort of see it. You can see as soon as the tape hits this stopper, the string goes slack. Right? And that's to prevent the weight from continuing to pull. Because if the weight continues to pull, you're going to get this really just unstable motion of it just like absolutely slamming into the ground, right? Because you need all that weight to get it to start, but once it's started, you don't really need all that weight anymore. It can kind of move by itself. And it'll just create it'll create a ton of vibrations, which you don't want. But it'll also look really bad when it's not as smooth of a motion. You want everything to be nice and smooth as it goes across the arc. And if the weight keeps on pulling, you're not going to get that. The other thing that happens is right around this point, it starts lifting another weight to help slow it down. So you can really see it, how it like is a lot slower as it falls into position. And it's easier to see in real speed. Right, sort of see how it slows down.
How would it only be lifting it at the end?
Ooh, string stoppers. So you can see you can see how it kind of moves. It's like if you took the motion and then applied an ease in and ease out to it.
Okay, yeah.
There's an angle right here where you can really see where it lifts that weight up. It's this one right here. So as it's moving across, this is a little bit after it actually happens. You can see it moving a little bit there. But you've got a string stopper, so it's not even moving at all. You can see this weight dropping as well. So one of the weights, this weight is what pulls it, this is what makes it speed up, this is what makes it slow down. So the first one over here on the left starts to pull until the tape reaches the stopping point. And then you can see this string goes slack. And then after a certain point, it starts to lift this weight. And then that extra weight of it having to lift it eventually is what makes it decelerate. So you end up with this really fluid motion.
Okay. Yeah, I gotcha.
And it helps reduce vibrations as well, which was extremely important for this. Anything with compact style, it's important to reduce vibrations. So and this is just a lever that starts everything. The dice here.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
Yeah. Once it reaches this point, the string is now totally slack. And this type of string, it's rat tail cord. It's what we've been using throughout the week. And you may have noticed that it's not just completely saggy. Like sometimes it will coil in on itself a little bit. And what I wanted to do here was avoid any other things getting hit by it coiling up in some unpredictable way.
Kind of like what you did right over there.
Yeah, actually, there's a dice in the cereal box trick So this dice is just to provide extra weight so that I am confident that when the string goes slack, it will just fold in that middle point. It won't coil in some weird way. It'll just fold in half.
Okay.
So the dice is just pulling it so it'll always fold in half. There's also a shock absorber here to help slow it down as well. So this purple piece is at the very top of the red rod, and you can see it kind of slide down. Well, you can't see it slide down, but it does. Let's go here again.
It's like you're making safe G-forces on an amusement park ride.
Exactly. Yep, that's pretty much it. So gear comes all the way over and hits the blue domino. This is regular domino and string. For the first time, we have something very simple. And then this is the orange wiffle ball on the same track that starts the whole thing. So this is the second use of this track. Second, and this is the last use. So now, remember this little train was here the first time, but now that it's all the way down here, it rolls into the tire. There's like a ball holder, basically. And this, again, is easier to see from a different angle. What I'm trying to do when I film is really capture the main motion of it, not necessarily all the individual intricacies of it. If those do show up on camera, hey, that's great. But I will always prioritize the big, exciting motion over the little intricacies.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that's... this angle shows it really well. So you can kind of see how this works if you want to go ahead. So you've got the orange ball starting down there.
Okay. Oh, I was using one of those today.
Yeah.
Okay, something's happening.
Yeah.
We got a little whip around.
So
there's
two,
like over 3 different things happening at once.
Yeah. So these two are just
That
levers
is
connected by strings.
Spinning.
Yeah.
There's 2 things spinning, 1 thing penduluming.
Sure.
Or whatever that is.
This is the release for this blue rod. So if we go back to when everything's in a static position, when everything's totally reset.
Oh, okay. So that only matters for that.
Yeah, you can see how the red or the blue rod is kind of resting on this blue piece here.
Yeah.
You know these blue pieces have that little hole at the end.
Mm-hmm.
It's resting inside that little hole, which is like a very illegal connection. So
but you did that on purpose.
Oh yeah. It's a good holder. It's able to rest in there pretty snugly. So then there's the rubber band, like you mentioned. That's coming down here and it's wrapped around here. So that when this gets released, everything just rotates really quickly.
Okay.
And then you'll notice this ball here, the marble, it's resting on the other end of the pendulum. So when it goes down, it basically just drops it.
Uh-huh.
So this trick that actually happens here is it drops it into the cup tilts, and then goes into the blue tube.
Okay, that's still the center of attention.
Yeah.
And we also have this die moving around.
Yeah, I'll get to that. There's a separate trick. That's not really part of this trick. But that was the whole thing at this point. This trick has multiple components to it.
Ooh, now we're in this little scoop.
Well, we're going to get to that. But this trick has a bunch of different components to it. And this is the first one where it drops the marble in and goes through the tube. But to get the marble to this point, I'd pretty much boxed myself in at this point because I had already had this track here. There was no real place to put a lead-in track without blocking a ton of stuff or really making something that would be really tough to see. So I was stuck in a position where I had to get the ball into the cup, but I couldn't really make a track that leads into it at all.
So you started with it partially in.
So yeah, exactly. So you start with it partially in and just drop it. And this was the way to do that, is you have Newton's first law, objects at rest will stay at rest. So you just remove the support for it really quickly and it'll just stay where it is. And rubber band is really the best way to do that. Yeah.
I think that's interesting how you also think in a similar way where you basically just create problems for yourself and then solve them.
Yeah, so this is getting into...
Weird?
Well, this is getting into the...
Sometimes I confuse myself when I think about that. Like, I'm trying to solve this problem and I'm like, wow, I made this problem for myself. Isn't that weird that I'm solving it, but that's like what makes this happen?
Yeah, and that's like really into the mechanics of machines. Like that comes down to every builder's individual style, and that really depends on how compact it is. Because a lot of the time,
yeah, that's really interesting to me. And why is it being compact even satisfying?
I
have the same feeling though too. Like back when I used to play Roller Coaster Tycoon 2, I always wanted these roller coasters to be as intertwined as possible because for some reason I thought that was satisfying, and I don't know why. There's not really a good term for that. You know what
I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. I think the most exciting part of building machines for me is, first of all, I guess coming up with the cool motions, but second of all, when you do full-length machines, especially the compact ones, what's most exciting for me is figuring out how all the puzzle pieces fit together and figuring out, like, the shape of this one particular trick flows really nicely into the next part, which flows really nicely into the next part, and it's really nicely, I think, this is going back a while, but in Bet Losing Machine from 2017, Joel left a comment on the video saying that all of the tricks were kind of like puzzle pieces, and it was really interesting to see how they all fit together and flow really nicely, and that really just stuck with me for a long time, and I think that's what eventually came to define my style of everything being really compact but also flowing together really nicely. And you'll kind of notice that, you know, a lot of machine builders would talk about connections. You know, I have to make the connection from this to this, you know, and that's literally what this show is named after. But I never really experienced that, because a lot of the connections that I will make are often miniature tricks in and of themselves. For example, the next trick that you almost kind of got to, the rolling tire thing, like that is literally just a connection to get from this marble to the edge of the table. Like, I could have just done a lever there, or I could have just had the track turn and lead off this direction, because at the time that I made this, the entire right side of the table is totally empty. Like, my options are wide open there. I could do whatever I want to get this ball to the edge of the table, but the first thing I thought of was, what could I do that's more interesting than that? And, you know, it took a little bit of extra time, but it's totally worth it. A lot of people would have really liked that trick. And then, yeah, I mean, the other thing you said about creating problems for yourself, I think you run into that a lot with a compact style, but that's really what defines machine building for me, is how elegant is your solution. You know, if your solution takes up, you know, it's really exciting when you can discover a solution that's just one lever, or just one domino and string connection, or sometimes just one singular piece. That's really fun. I don't know what your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think there's kind of a gradient on sort of reliability versus simplicity. Like, you can have a very simple connection that is not going to work that many. Or that whatever percent of the time.
It's not going to work that often.
That's kind of how I think of it.
Yeah, so that's part of it too. You want to make something that's going to work well. And this was 100% reliable. The transition from the ball going into the cup, or into the holder, which releases the rubber band, which drops the marble, like, that was really reliable. I had a few issues where it would go early, but that was only in testing, and all the problems got ironed out by the time it got to actual filming time. So, all right. So we can kind of move on from here. This is a close-up footage anyway. We got to get back to the actual machine footage. Maybe. There it is. Far ahead. There, here we go. So it drops it into the cup, and then it rolls through the blue tube, across the marble track, and then into the blue cup. So this is an
Jack of
spades. There it is. Yeah. So this is another sort of decoration similar to the cipher wheel that was added after the trick was actually made.
Am I the first person to notice that?
I think so. Yeah. And you know about the Cy Stebbins stack. You know the video he did about that. Maybe not.
What stack?
The Cy Stebbins stack, where it's used in Magic, I guess, and it's
Magic the Gathering?
no like card tricks.
Oh, okay.
But it's like the club, hearts, spades, diamonds in that order, but they add 3 every time. So
You did that?
yeah. So this
Oh
is a
my
sequence
God.
of the Cy Stebbins stack that ends in the Jack of Spades. So going down from there, you got club,
Wait,
hearts,
was this
spades,
like
diamonds.
a Vsauce 2 video?
No, it's a Dong Ding video.
Dong.
You know, it's called Dong. They renamed it.
They rebranded it.
Yeah.
Okay.
The idea is like for magic tricks, you can just like it looks like a normal sequence. It looks like a totally random sequence, but secretly you can always predict what the next card is. So this is just a random looking sequence that ends in the Jack of Spades because of course. So then ball rolls out, and then here's where things get a little bit complicated. So we've got that release lever. The ink plushie on this end is heavier, so then that end goes down. Once it falls to the ground, we've got the magnifying glass that's now heavier. So then it comes down, and then you see the red clothespin under there.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just a piece of tape in the other end of the clothespin, and that's holding a string with a weight on it. So then that comes down, the magnifying glass comes down on the end of the clothespin and releases the tape. So then, like we were talking about earlier, how I follow the actual motion and not the connections. What I'm following here is the actual flipping of this thing. So I remember earlier you were talking about that dice that was attached to that like weird looking lever.
Yeah.
So here's that weird looking lever. So notice in this position it kind of doesn't do anything. It moves, but it doesn't do anything really. The cup kind of rests on this end and just kind of moves that lever. So in the vertical position of this wooden plank, that dice isn't gonna... The dice is just a weight, by the way. It's not really gonna move the cup in any meaningful way. It's just gonna rest against it. But then you can kind of see how when that weight is now in the horizontal position, now the weight is enough to flip the cup. Do you get it?
I think so. It's a lot to unpack. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to see 2 angles of it in order for it to make sense.
That's the case for most of this, and that's just because making connections is all about understanding the intricacies.
Uh-huh. I do feel like I have a much better understanding already.
All right, so now we've got this motion here. I know we're literally just watching half of this machine from screen link clip views, which is probably fine. All right, so then that comes out, knocks off. You know this game, the tip over game, with this little.
Oh yeah, I recognize that.
Yeah, it's not Vsauce themed in any way, but I just thought it was kind of cool to have it knock the little guy off. So now we'll follow one path of everything that's happening here. Because you can also see you can see down here there's a magnetic ball rolling out. We'll ignore that for now. So the little man knocks this lever, and that's what tips this track. This is the track that was doing the swivel motion originally.
Uh-huh.
So that's what tilts the ball. Ball rolls into the cup that just fell into place. Boom, there it goes. So then notice, remember the orange wiffle ball was like a ball into cup holder sort of thing?
Mm-hmm.
Now that is the classic Doodle Chaos patent pending ball rolls over ball trick. Basically a version of that where the ball goes into the holder and then another ball rolls over the top of that ball and then into the same train track that was used before.
Mm-hmm.
So on the end of this train, you can recognize that like gray 45 connects piece.
Yeah.
That's just an angled piece, so that when the ball rolls down, it's able to kind of roll off the track. And then those
From the train.
yeah, these 2 orange popsicle sticks on the Brio train, or on the Brio track, that's to prevent the ball from getting stuck in one of the grooves. Notice how there's like the 2 wheel grooves? I don't want it to get stuck there, so when it's basically just preventing that from happening. So we roll into the gap, and then from here, this is the ball. Again, like this is a 1-ball pass. So this is the same ball that started the whole thing. We roll into here, knocks off a little lever guy. Red domino. Red domino is what releases the straw. These are the straws that Steve has. You recognize those. So he just flips
Hex
it over.
bug.
Yeah. So this is a pretty simple hex bug thing. You can kind of probably go from here.
The hex bug is going on its own. Nothing else is happening.
Have you seen all the episodes of Minefield?
For the most part. Oh wait, no, that's the paid one.
That's the paid one. Yeah.
No, I didn't pay for it.
Okay, I've got premium, so I've seen all of them. This is a reference to one of the episodes. Basically, it's about AI, and the whole concept is how easily people can get attached to robots, like emotionally attached to robots. So the experiment that he does is he takes hex bugs, and he has one group of people who have absolutely no attachment whatsoever. He just gives them the toy and tells them to smash it with a hammer. And most of them do it, and they're like, that's fun, I love smashing things with hammers. And then the other group of people, he takes them in, and he's got a whole terrarium, and he has them, he like gives them all names, he gives them all personalities, he tells them that this guy's really sweet, but he calms down when when he's around humans, or he really likes you, stuff like that, to really personalize this, essentially a toy, a vibrating little bug thing. And then he does the same thing, asks them to smash it with a hammer. And there's a significant reluctance from people to do that because they've developed this whole emotional attachment to it. So this is one of the quotes from that episode is, "Take this mallet and smash Aaron." And this is a recreation of that moment. So he puts it...
Oh, is that called like anthropomorphism? When you give like
Maybe.
human qualities to inhuman things?
Yep. So this is actually a direct recreation of one of the scenes from there, because he puts it on a target with a magnet in it. That's how people are able to smash it. So it stays still that way. And then the mallet comes down, and that's why the bug is not moving at this point. It magnetizes. You can actually kind of...
Is Aaron like a mean guy from it?
I know, it's just one of the names that's from the episode, but you can see in real speed how the bug gets to the end of the track and just goes boom, and just immediately magnetizes. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm surprised it was that strong through the...
It's a really strong magnet under there.
Okay.
So this is just a string tug, basically. It's taut. It's like a completely tight string to begin with, and it just like pulls the center of it a little bit, and you get that. It pulls the mallet over. So then smash, and then that's just pulling out the lever here. So here's a section that I think you're gonna really like, because I remember I'm not as encyclopedic knowledge as Joel is, but I do remember you made a machine that solved Rubik's Cube.
Indeed.
Yes. So we've got, instead of, I think, did you do 2 faces that moved, or one? You did one, right?
I think it was just really simple. Just
There's just one turn.
Yeah.
So this one's 3 turns.
Wow, I haven't thought about that in so many years.
So this is top face, back face, right face.
Oh, it's already it's spinning as that's moving.
Yeah. So this is a vibration trigger, which is a big yikes moment. But yeah. So there's a weight that's already off the table. You can kind of, it goes behind the sign, but you can kind of see the string.
Oh,
that
you
goes
tried
here.
to do a vibration trigger though?
Yeah, it was on purpose. This is not an impurity, if that's what you're saying. This is exactly how it works.
Okay.
This is intended how it works. And so that you can see the string that goes off this way, and then underneath everything over here, and then off the left side of the frame.
Yeah.
That's an off-table weight that's already pulling the track 90 degrees.
Okay.
And all it takes is the vibration of that billiard ball landing on the track to just kind of pull it and allow it to slide. So it starts to slide. That's what rotates the top face. It kind of hits this white piece. It's a barrier here. And then it misses the domino, falls into place, and then the track is sloped towards this way. It's sloped towards this way. So it has enough speed to get up towards the back initially.
Okay.
Then it rolls back automatically. So these red pistons, you're familiar with how these red pistons work, right?
No. Is that a connects piston?
It is. It's one of those where you press down
I
on the
don't
top
know.
and then the side comes out. So it's like this sort of motion.
Okay.
You press down and it goes this way. So this is a repurposing of that. But if you don't understand how it works initially, it's tough to understand. But basically, there's a spring inside, so it'll automatically return to this position. You can press down, it'll go like this, but it'll automatically return here.
Okay.
It just goes boom, like that. So what I did was I jammed a piece up in here. So it's stuck in the position that it doesn't really want to be in automatically. So what I've done is turned it again 90 degrees this way. So it wants to push out that way. But it's lodged in. There's a piece lodged in preventing it from doing that. So when there's an impact on this end, it immediately dislodges the weight and it pushes it back this way. So it presses against this side, which lifts this end up ever so slightly to allow the weight to come out. And then it wants to return back to its initial position.
That's a convenient motion to have.
Yeah. I wanted to do it for like Reactica and a couple other things, but I haven't done it since then. But yeah, so you can see it presses in on that side ever so slightly, and then it wants to return to its initial position. So it basically works as an automatic ball pusher. So it hits it and pushes it back the other way. And you can hear that sound kind of, and that's the weight falling out. Yeah. So that's enough to get it to come all the way back up and actually hit the dominant this time. So it's like a 1, 2, 3 sort of motion of like a cloverleaf 3-point turn.
I gotcha.
Yeah, 3-point turn on the track. So now we've got one face of the Rubik's Cube solved.
Did you ever have problems with it, like jamming when you try to turn again, if it's not perfectly?
Surprisingly, no. But I was very, very careful about how I did this in the building process, because I knew that could be an issue. And I was fortunate that I foresaw that as a potential problem, and I was very, very precise as to where I put stoppers and where I put barricades to block things from rotating. Because like when this weight is pulling it the first time, I'm not just relying on the string to make it centered. It's like it's hitting a block to stop it perfectly in the right spot. So then this, it wasn't really a problem, basically, to sum everything up.
Okay.
But yeah, you're right. It definitely could have been. So the next weight is what does the back face. The second of 3. Where's the mouse? There it is. So this is a little tiny track that comes up through this teeny little alleyway, tiny little space. And that's just a track here. And also this back part, which you can see kind of here, if I move forward a little bit. There's a platform with like a playing card here. And you can see this green piece of tape. It's a hinge, so that actually folds up. Right? When it's down here on the table, when it's all the way down on the table, here we go. That is flat against the table because the back end of the track is touching the table. So when it comes up, that part folds out, kind of. So you can see it bouncing around there a little bit. See it there? It's kind of bouncing around.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was, again, a creative problem-solving solution because I had to basically, once it's in this position, I knew that I was going to have this other ball lift that goes across like this, and then from the end of this track, where do you go? Basically, you're totally stuck here. So I have to make some way of getting out of there, so I did this 90-degree turn. All right, so where we left off is approximately with the Rubik's Cube ball lift, the last one here. So after that, we go into the kendama trick. So we were talking about how this card kind of flips down as it comes up. So this one's weird. This is a Pythagoras Uichi trick. The whole thing where it rolls and then the spike goes into the ball.
Wait, I need to see it in... Oh, yeah, I
so
know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so look at the spike. It lines up with the ball.
How many fails with that did you have?
Take a guess.
Like 20?
20? Take off the 2 and you'd be right.
0.
0. In testing, just to like find the right spot, obviously it was failing then, but once I found out the specific spot that it had to be and figured out a way to easily reset it that way every time, perfect success every time. And that's what the green tape is on the rails as well. It's just that extra friction so that it doesn't, slide along the tube. So this is, I guess like a string. The string pulls it here. This is interesting because the ball is like in the cup, but it's at the perfect center of rotation. So like when the cup tips, it doesn't fling the ball out at all. The ball is basically perfectly aligned with the center of rotation. So that when it comes down, it doesn't even, the ball barely has any extra energy.
Yeah, I like that. Alright.
So this is just stopping the ball from falling off the spike. And it's going into one of the sides as like a ball lift holder.
We got a classic Newton's cradle.
Yeah, but later. It looks like it's gonna happen now, but it happens later. But this whole mess of stuff over here is like 3 different crisscrossing levers.
Why did you need 3 different crisscrossing levers?
Because I boxed myself in, and it was tough to get out of that situation. I had the idea of, I don't even remember really at this point. This part was the first thing, where the weight falls off and it has this orange slide to kind of direct it down this way. That was, I think, the first thing. And then this little bridge just opens up to let the ball fall into the container and then do a ball lift motion to lift the ball back up.
So it's like a dual use, whatever that toy is called.
The kendama. Yeah, which is from the episode about, well, I don't know if it was a Vsauce episode, but it was the one with Adam Savage where they're making one, like making their custom one. It's like a 26-minute long video. I think it is on Vsauce.
Oh.
But it's good. It's very good. They're talking about, they made their own. And we'll get to this sort of mess later, but it's just a bunch of different levers. There's one that releases the Newton's cradle. There's one that lifts this track.
So when you were building this, was that part empty?
Was this part what?
Was this part of the creation not existent when you were making it?
Yeah, that's exactly right. This
Then
part.
why were you... So you still just made it that compact for...
Yeah, it turned out that I had I remember now. I already had created the part of this trick where the hammer comes back down again. Like this part where it lifts it up into the track isn't the final use. Like it happens later, because the ball falls into the container, right? Wait. So you can see that the blue ball comes down, rests against the thing, and then falls into the green container.
Yeah.
Right, so I had already made this whole segment where the ball gets dumped out of the container and then pulls the kendama back down again. Because up till this point I hadn't even really used the string at all. And like that's the whole point of the toy, is that it's connected by a string. So like the using the ball and the spike is cool, but it's not really using the whole object.
So you're using it 3 times.
Yeah. So I had to use the string, and the way to do that is to have the ball get dumped out and pull the hammer back down again. And I left that dead end open for a really long time, and almost forgot about it. Kind of kept it in the back of my mind a little bit, but never really I wouldn't say I did the best job of actually integrating it too well into the construction of it, because the lever that it hits on the way down is like really hidden. It's not really easy to understand, and it didn't work too well either. It was one of the most sketchy parts of the whole thing. It took forever to get it to work right. This whole kendama thing in general was really tough.
That's what the toy is called?
Kendama, yeah.
Okay.
The whole thing is just tough in general because the string would love to get caught on stuff and just twist, and it's just a mess. I mean, as it's rolling down, you can see it wrapping around the ball, and it's jumping off of it and falling to the side. It's just impossible to control.
Yeah, I can see that causing issues.
and it's like
Snagging.
yeah, exactly, snagging on things, and there's like completely open parts of this that it could easily get wrapped around, and I think it falls like the ball rolls on top of the string here, like the string lands in the little thing where the ping pong ball is supposed to go.
But that's okay.
I guess so, because I wouldn't have expected it. But when it lifts back up, the string just like falls out and like gets pulled out, yanked out from underneath it without dislodging the ball at all. It's like what?
Okay, I would have never noticed.
Yeah, and like if I had, like when I'm filming this, I'm obviously not even paying that much attention to it. Like I'm watching so many
The
things
big
at once
stuff,
here.
yeah.
Yeah, like I'm not noticing that the ball is on top of the string. But if I had, I would have thought there's no way this would work. But I guess it doesn't matter. It's just going fast enough that it just yanks it out from underneath it.
It kind of reminds me of like movie details where they'll hide some like little things in the back. Except
They're
your
Easter
video
eggs,
is like nothing but that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like you're trying to.
Except this was
Fine.
not intentional. It's just like those little movie Easter eggs that are like mistakes, the Starbucks cup and whatnot. Yeah, so we can talk a little more about the 3-lever crisscross thing when we get to it, but this is my favorite trick in the whole thing. This
Ooh, yeah, the gear one. I really
Yeah,
like this one too.
the gear train module thing. And recently...
Michael from Vsauce liked it.
He did?
Well, he just like
We like the
tweeted
whole...
at you.
Oh, yeah. So I guess the update is... Since we filmed the first half, Michael actually did see the video and tweeted about it, so that's exciting, and hopefully something works out there. But yeah, he said he liked it, and hopefully this part in particular. But recently, I think you may have been one of the first people to do a trick where, or I don't know, maybe Noah, but the one where it's like a little stick in a car and then it drives along and pushes balls into the cup as it goes. You're familiar
Wasn't
with
that a how do you pronounce it?
Pitagora Suichi.
I've
heard it.
the
I mean,
first people.
Very well could
I
be.
think that they were.
Yeah, but I know you did something like that too.
Yeah, I think so.
It's like I probably know your videos
Yeah,
better
you
than
know
do.
better than I would.
Yeah. I could be wrong though. I might be thinking of Noah because I know Noah has done that. That's Toothpaste 35. But yeah, recently I've been doing a lot of different variations on that concept.
Okay.
Just the extended ball pushes into cup, or extended arm pushes ball into cup. I've done one with a rotating track where the actual thing in the middle kind of does a path like that. I've done one on an auto tilt where it goes one way to release the balls and then the other way to push it into the cup. And then I've done it this way where instead of balls, it's gears. And this one I think is my favorite version of it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to need to see this slowly.
Yeah. So the connections for it is just a science bus in the background, another themed object, a simple release lever to let it go, and then each of these 3 wooden supports are just holding a gear. This is the yellow popsicle stick that pushes each of them, and then there's the base gear here, and then the final gear here, the 2 gray ones. So as it goes down, it like pushes them off and it slides down. So there's the first one, second one.
How are they not falling out the side?
There's clear plexiglass here.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, once it gets to the base, it might be easier to tell. You can kind of see. It's tough to see. But here, we can do this. Let's see. We've got... I know I have a whole thing of photos. If anything will load. And then...
Let's see your file organization.
Yeah, that's quite good. I'm happy with
Better
it.
than me. I just have a big list of as
So
it
here's
comes.
here's the whole module, just kind of as a unit, separated entirely from the track and everything. So there's the plexiglass on the sides. This is what holds this gear. Then there's the track that's actually attached to it. the magnets that hold it in place, and then this is what pulls it. So like, let's see. Yeah, here's the initial state where the arm is blocking the ball and this is upright. And then here's the final state when this gets pulled down to release the arm, or to release the gate, kind of.
And they just happen to fall perfectly into that little slit?
Yeah. Yeah.
No issues with that?
Well, let's not get too crazy. There are plenty of issues with it. But I think every time that it got to this point in actual filming, like actual testing, full tests.
What % of your tests made it this far?
Very small.
Okay.
Maybe a few, like 10 or so. But all of them worked for this. All of them made it past this. So I don't think the gear stacking ever failed. But it failed all the time in testing.
Huh.
This was by far the most, I guess, technically intricate part of the whole thing. The kendama is the most frustrating just because it has just a bunch of random things that can happen. But this one is just, there's a lot of technical complexity that goes into it. But yeah. So there's the second one, third one, and then you can see kind of the string that's getting pulled. So when it gets to a certain point, that's what this arm that falls down here. It's just like pulling it down, and then the gears meshing is what releases the gate. So the other thing is this entire sequence is supposed to be a representation of the real life trolley problem. I assume you've seen the...
Like Cyanide Happiness? Have you seen the
I
new
know.
ones? They
I'm
have like a
sure.
whole game coming out about that.
Oh, I'm not surprised. I'm not familiar with that, but like
I know what you're talking about.
you've seen that episode, right? The minefield one. It's free. It's the free one. of the
Yeah,
free
I
ones.
watched that one.
Yeah. So, in the generic concept is just like 5 people on one track versus 1 on the next, but you have to pull the lever to divert the train. So the idea here is that it's the real life trolley problem. So you can kind of see, not too well from this angle, but there's like a bunch of the construction men over here.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Actually, we can do this. Go to the end and you can really see him. So there's like...
Oh, I bet Michael would like this way more if he realized that, but I don't know if he would realize.
I don't know. It's tough to see, for sure. There's actually a really good screen link clip of it. If we can... The thumbnails will load. Let's see. It might be somewhere around here.
I guess I should have noticed. From
Yeah, that part is visible in the actual take. Oh, here we go. This one maybe? You can kind of see how it gets diverted. And there's a little minifigure on this track. So he's like in this example, it's like you choose to switch the tracks to kill one person versus 5.
Yeah.
So the train comes along and hits the one person on the track. And he acts as basically a regular just domino versus or domino with string connection. We have a guest.
Be a guest?
Hi. The audio is gonna be great. So that's that one. Yeah, so you can see the little minifigure getting pushed off here, because he's like the one victim. We've chosen to
So they
redirect.
chose 1 over.
They've chosen to
5.
kill one person over 5, and that just made the trick even more complex because
Would you choose that?
there's a curve in it. Oh man, would I choose that? I don't know. That's one of the the trolley problem, like the original version of it, is one of the most mystifying things for me because I have literally no idea what I would actually do.
Yeah, some things about ethics get pretty wild.
Yeah, for sure. But the added aspect of putting a turn in this trick made that even harder. Because one of them gets knocked off at an angle.
Oh yeah.
If I were just doing this trick to demonstrate a concept, like for an unthemed screen link or something like that, I would just make it a straight line. But it's cool. So now we've got
2 things happening at once.
Kind of. I tried to separate them as much as possible. I don't know how much you agree with this, but I don't love multiple things happening at the same time.
Yeah, I used to think like, oh, it's so cool because I want it really complicated, but now I'm more like that. It's just hard to understand.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think, I used to be very much in team whatever you have to do to make the trick cool, but now I'm much more in favor of really thinking ahead of time about how your connections are going to look and how to connect things in a simpler way to make it much more linear. You can still have multi-use even if it's linear, and you can still have interesting pathing even if it's linear. Linear just meaning one thing happens at a time.
I still really like timing tricks though, and that usually needs multiple things at once.
Yes, that is true. Timing tricks, pretty much by definition, require multiple things happening at once. Mm-hmm. So there is a difference there. That's true. I don't think there are any timing tricks in this machine.
Have we ever did we discuss yet like why we like multiple use?
Well, let's
because
get into it.
I think that's
Yeah.
an interesting thing to talk about. That pretty much nobody else I know, besides the people here, would even say. So
Yeah.
why do we enjoy that? Do all people enjoy that, or is that just
It's
like
interesting. It's interesting.
enthusiast thing to like?
I think it's a little bit universal. I see comments from people who have presumably never seen machines before say stuff like, "It's really cool that you used that a bunch of times," or they'll say it in a way that's clearly layman speak, kind of. They won't use the phrase multi-use element. They'll kind of word it differently, but you can tell that that's the concept that they're getting at, and they're impressed by it. I would assume it's just because, you assume when you see something get used once that that's just the end. But when you use something in multiple ways, it really shows that you've planned ahead and you've really thought about not just where something is currently, but where it's going to end up, and then making that, because the second motion a lot of the time is different than the first motion.
Yeah, I think it's almost kind of similar to like what a magician is achieving, where you think like you've been tricked by the fact that something new has happened that you didn't see coming.
Yeah, because the
Maybe-
default expectation is just that everything gets used once.
Yeah.
And that's even my default expectation is that something will get used only once, unless it's you very clear that it's not the case. Like you see multiple modules of the same thing, or something like that. But even ball on track, I always assume that the ball is just going to go in one direction. So even an auto tilt is surprising for a lot of people, just because it goes back the other way. Wow. That even that's cool, because that's probably one of the more basic forms of multi-use, but it just kind of goes to show that it's just a built-in surprise factor, really, because it's you're playing off of the most basic default expectations that you have.
Yeah, I just really want to know more about why I like the things I like about chain reactions, because that's been such a mystery to me, and there's no information on that. Like you can't really research why we enjoy this and why a lot of other people do too. Besides, you can lump it into things being satisfying, which is kind of.
But then you
broad.
just get into the question of why it's satisfying, which is doesn't answer the question all that much, really. I don't really have much of a theory as to why multi-use is so satisfying or interesting. That's kind of my only guess, is just that it's your basic expectation is.
Is your goal
shattered.
while building to make something satisfying?
Not really. I've kind of.
Do you try to make what's interesting to you, or what you think people will like?
Oh, definitely, it's what's interesting to me.
Okay.
For something like this, it's interesting because obviously I'm trying to make it themed, which is kind of like I'm trying to make it interesting for other people, specifically fans of Vsauce in this case. Yeah. So there is a factor of that, but usually for generic screen link clips or stuff like that, it's always just what I like to make. And I've discovered that my style is very heavily focused on interesting motions. You know, really interesting, you know, gear patterns, or really interesting, like geometrical shapes that do really cool, interesting things, or like sequences that are really satisfying. Anything that has to do with a cool looking motion, that's what I'm a huge fan of. But there's a whole separate type of chain reaction artist, in my opinion, that's a lot more focused on object. So, you know, you say like, oh,
would you say Steve is more object?
Yeah, I mean, I would kind of divide, or it's tough to, I don't want to divide people, right? But you can kind of give distinctions to various people's style and say that it's a little bit more object oriented versus motion oriented. I would say people like Alex B, Burlog Awesome, Steve, Sprice Machines, Joseph Herscher, definitely.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Are all object oriented. They're all about how to use objects in really interesting ways or really innovative ways, but it's not primarily about creating an interesting physics motion or some kind of cool, you know, flipping motion or something like that. Whereas people like me, for sure, Joel, The Invention 11, Carson, CWD Reactions, probably, I would even say Chase, the RGM Guy 01, all are more focused on motions and like really interesting, like I said, flipping and spinning and rotating kind of motions, which is why our styles typically tend to use a lot more connects, because it's not necessarily primarily about what objects we use, it's about what motions are achieved. I don't know where your style would really fall, though, because it's been a while since you've made a three-dimensional machine.
I guess I can just look at what I've been doing.
I think I would put you closer to object-based, but it's tough because you've done a lot of cool motion stuff in the past. Like a lot of the 2D board stuff that you've done is very motion-based, like the timing stuff with like the rolling logs and like that's all motion-based, and like there are, you know, a lot of motion-based artists use a lot of foreign objects, and a lot of those videos are just, you know, Jenga blocks and marbles. So
I just don't really branch out in materials that much.
And neither do I, and I think that's totally fine.
Well, if you haven't exhausted
if you still have ideas that you like to make, I don't see a problem with that. Yeah. But I mean, it's a very loose classification of different people, I would say. There's no reason to like split people into both camps and like pit them against each other, which one's better, because like it's just, at the end of the day, I use a lot of foreign objects that have cool object uses, and Steve has a lot of cool motion tricks as well. Like it's just you can kind of maybe divide it by what tricks are made, but not necessarily each builder entirely falls into each camp.
Or it's like a
Venn diagram.
Shared Venn diagram.
Yeah, for sure. But anyway, this is, I guess the globe is a themed object because he does a lot of space videos and like Earth videos. This picture down here is kind of obscured, but it's a picture of him with his collection of globes, which you can see here.
Oh my god. This feels like a investigation where they're saying enhance.
Crop scale. Yeah, that's a screenshot from the video. Oh man, why are we back here? It's zoom. So this is you know about ambigrams, right? He did a video about ambigrams, which are like the words that look the same one way versus the other way. Flip it 180 degrees, it looks the same.
Is it the opposite of an anagram, where it's like
well, anagram is rearranged the letters. Palindrome is frontwards backwards.
Oh yeah.
And then ambigram is words that are written in a specific way, in like an artistic way, that they look like the same word.
No, I didn't see that.
Oh, interesting. Well, he did a whole video about
cool,
that.
though.
Yeah, but he featured specifically 3 different books in that video. This was one of them. It's Wordplay by John Langdon. So I bought the book a while ago, not specifically for this machine, but I decided obviously I should use it in the machine, so it's just like a tilted board, basically. It's hard to tell that's what it is, because I did put a lot of stuff on this board. But, more excitingly, this Vsauce here It's like the writing on the paper.
Mm-hmm.
That is an ambigram that I designed. So it says Vsauce in this orientation, and
You designed?
I designed this.
In
Yes.
what? Photoshop or
Illustrator.
Drawing?
Illustrator. So it says Vsauce in that orientation, and then it rotates 180, and it still says Vsauce. And then it rotates again back to the original orientation, says Vsauce again.
Oh, I see it better
Yeah.
now because the V. Ah, that's really clever.
Yeah. So it's adapted from the the regular Vsauce logo. It
Do
looks.
you want to make me a new logo?
Should I do a doodle?
I'm in
I
the
could do like
market.
one that says doodle, and then when you flip it over, it says chaos. I could try that, yeah. But I this is like their regular logo. I just kind of took the font and adapted it a little bit, because like the V, like the inverted V with like the double V thing where they're like nested within each other, that was super useful to create the V and the E out of it.
Mm-hmm.
This took a while to make, but it's worth it, and I wanted to show it off by putting it
That's
on a
super cool
fidget
that you
spinner.
made it yourself too.
I think it looks really good. I'm very proud of it, and I wanted to show it off. So
Make sure you copyright it.
Yeah,
Or something.
definitely. So the whole idea for this board was to use the ambigram book and then make my own ambigram of the word Vsauce and put it on a fidget spinner and rotate the fidget spinner so that you can see it rotating, and like you read it from both orientations more
Yeah.
than one time. So you see it in its initial position, you're like, oh, it says Vsauce. It rotates 180, it says, oh, it says Vsauce again, and then it keeps going, and you eventually realize, oh, it's an ambigram of the word. And I think that was where it started, was fidget spinner, ambigram. And then from the rest, it's just different pathing systems for balls. But the first marble goes into this track, and then the second, the main ball, like the one ball path ball, goes back through there. We've got two interesting methods of motion, like basic chain reaction tricks. This is a disconnecting string pull. It's basically a gray spacer on the end of a rod. So when it gets to this point, the gray spacer just slides off. Soon. It just slides right off.
I like that.
Yeah, so in this orientation it slides right off, and it keeps rotating because it's just giving it that extra speed. Because it turned out the ball hitting it was not enough force.
That could be useful for a lot of stuff.
It's really nice. It's tough to make though, because attaching a string to a spacer, you can't tie it through the spacer, because then if it's on a rod, you're not gonna it's not gonna slide off. So this one's zip tied to the back, but it works. It works. The other interesting thing is this like path splitter thing. So the first time it goes through, it hits this arm and rotates it around, right? This end hits the red domino and acts as basically a shock absorber. See how it like totally stops it, completely absorbs all the energy. So the second time it comes around, they're ever so slightly offset. So the first time it swings around, it hits the one that's closer and knocks it over. And then the second time it hits the one that's slightly offset from it. This was just impossible. This is just a very, frankly, very sketchy, janky way of doing this. But I tried so many different methods of, essentially all I needed to do was, when it goes around once, it doesn't do anything. When it goes around again, it triggers the next step.
Okay.
That's the whole goal of it. And it ended up with this really ridiculous structure of like, it's just really weird. and there's gotta be a better way of doing this. I just didn't find it. So we ended up with this. But it's got some cool concepts in it that I might use later, where it's like, it uses the falling domino as just a total shock absorber to stop it so it doesn't hit the thing. And then the next time it comes around, it's just enough to nudge it a little bit, and that knocks over the actual target for the next step. So now we're into the part where
that's a good solution.
it's a good solution, but I think it takes away a little bit from the actual spinning part. Like, if this was much, much simpler, I would have been happier. because I really want people to focus on reading this and then seeing the balls get diverted. But this is just such a huge, wide, spinny motion that I think it's a little distracting. But you're right, it has some potentially useful concepts within it. But if people like it, I'm not going to complain. So this is we're setting up the Newton's cradle here. So this is kind of the first part where it really does. So recently, most of my machines have been very linear. I've been really trying to cut down on having path systems where it returns to something that happened in the machine like a whole 15 seconds earlier.
Yeah.
I used to do that a lot. And I found that when I watched other people's videos who also did the same thing, I would feel like I recognized that did something earlier. I remember it did something, but I can't really remember exactly what.
So it's like too old to even think of as a reuse?
Yeah, it didn't register to me as like a complete motion. Because like every time you have something that gets used more than once, it's really interesting to see kind of how it gets from that one position to the next and then how it moves again. But if you've forgotten the first part, it just kind of looks like it's tough to see what that motion is kind of as one unit. So I stopped doing that, or tried to avoid doing that for a lot of machines recently. But I did it for this one trick, the kendama trick. It's one of those where it's like the kendama is done. We're not gonna go back to it, and then it does this whole other thing with the board and the gears, and then it gets used again, and that's like supposed to be like a really big mind-blowing moment of like, oh, it did it again. We actually did it again. So who knows if that's actually successful, but hopefully people can remember what the other motions were. But yeah, so starts off as a regular. Ball goes onto the spike comes down, uses it as a ball lift, and then the ball falls out and uses it as a hammer.
Yeah.
And I think when I explain it like that, look at the impact it's having, right? But like seeing it in real time, I think you kind of forget what the previous motions were, and
I was going
loses
to
in power.
bring this up to you. Like, I actually don't have a good solution for it, but just the fact that we can talk about. How long was this video in total?
This is a minute-long machine.
Yeah, a minute-long machine, and we've been talking about it for how long?
Probably over an hour,
Yeah.
at least, yeah.
Like, there's something like that.
I feel like you could get viewers to absorb more of it. I don't know if that means... But the thing is, I don't actually want you to change too many things because there's an appeal to it being so compact like this, but
Yeah.
I'm just imagining if you took everything and put it in like a straight line with a white background so you could clearly see everything that was happening.
Yeah.
It would lose in some areas but gain in others. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of throwing that out there just with some way. Maybe not even that. Maybe just how it's filmed. If you got the slow-mo guys to come over and just record it.
Yeah.
That would be so... I don't know. Because of how much happens so quickly that it's lost to the eyes.
Yeah. I mean, I think what you gain by having really complex, fast stuff is, like we were talking about earlier, like really interesting connections where everything seems to flow and fit together like puzzle pieces. But you do lose a little on understandability, for sure.
Yeah.
And you lose a lot in interesting pathing systems, because you'd never be able to do something like this where it returns to the old trick and stuff like that. I forgot what you said at the beginning about, like, you can analyze this video for an hour and it's only a minute long. I mean, that's kind of the whole idea of this show, really, but
I mean, that's what's amazing is that it's that dense, and I think that's why people are impressed because they can keep noticing something new every time. I'm just wondering what would benefit you the most.
What benefits me the most?
Get more bang for your buck of minute or how much time you put into it.
I don't much care about optimizing for any kind of algorithm. I just like making it. I just like.
No,
making
I don't.
Stuff.
I don't really mean for like algorithm, but just having people like appreciate. Versus how long you see.
I mean, in a lot of ways, it just provides rewatch value because then you really notice a lot of the nitty gritty details and intricacies when you go through it a second time.
Oh yeah, that's true.
What I like to do, I mean, I think about this especially in the context of Joel's videos. This is when I really notice this phenomenon. Is like the first watch through, I really just pay attention to the cool motions and the actual ideas that are being displayed. And then the second time through, or probably a few more, a little bit further down the road, is when I'll really go into it frame by frame and start analyzing how all the connections work, because there's all kinds of interesting complexities there too. But it's two waves basically of impressiveness. One is the initial motion, the initial idea, and then the second one is how all the little details work. So I think it provides rewatch value for those who are interested. And for those who aren't, hey, they just see some cool motions. But yeah, I guess I've also been, one of the things I've been trying to do recently, especially in the past year or so, is really start changing things about my style on purpose. Try totally different things. I mean, I tried Keyfinder, which was just like a whole dorm filled with like everyday household objects, really like a housewide style. And then, like I said, this is the first time I've made a full complexity one table machine in the last 3 years. You know, every event machine that I make, like Reactica, Domino World, those are a lot more spaced out or a lot simpler ideas. So my style changes a lot depending on context, and that's what's really exciting to me is when I get to change it up on purpose and try something totally different and see if I can pull it off and how adaptable I can be. So there's really something for everyone. The goal of this was to see how compact it could be and how much I could squeeze onto one table. Whereas other machines, it's all about the motions, and it's all about, like, a lot of the screen links I do are all about the motion. They're not necessarily about complexity. A lot of event machines, those are all about, like, visually pleasing, satisfying stuff, and not necessarily complexity or objects. So it's a different goal for every project, and that's what's really exciting to me.
I'm just having a weird moment looking at this, thinking like that a human being assembled all of this. Isn't that like crazy to think about? I mean, or just from your brain to...
I mean, I don't want to just say like, yeah, that's really crazy. I'm so good at making machines. I mean, yeah, I hope that's your reaction. That's kind of what I want. I mean, that's kind of the goal, I guess, is really make something where every little detail has a purpose.
Even if it didn't do anything, just as abstract art. I don't know.
Well, it kind of, the whole expressed purpose of a chain reaction is to do nothing. I mean, that's the whole idea, is it's a machine that accomplishes a simple task. And it's like an overcomplicated thing that is unnecessary. So in a lot of ways, it already is a machine that does nothing. But
I'm just trying to get down to like the base of why this is happening. It's so crazy.
Definitely more existential than I ever. This is definitely the most existential episode of Making Connections for sure. But yeah, so reuses the mallet, or reuses the kendama as a mallet, as a hammer. The marble jumps over the little barrier in the track here as well, which was purely unintentional. Or the jump was unintentional, but I decided to make it look intentional by adding an actual thing for it to jump over. It was, whenever it came down, it was like launching the ball out of the track momentarily and then coming down later in the track, like around the middle. So I'm like, I don't really like that. I don't really like the fact that it's launching it, but maybe if I make it look intentional, it'll work. And that's exactly what happened. This was probably added, this little black piece that it jumps over was probably added 5 tests before this actual working take. It was very, very last minute. Because I'd been, like I said, this lever system was being
real big problem, and I've been, making adjustments to it up until the very last test, basically. So that was added because the weight was changed, so it launched the ball this time, and then I'm just like, make it look like I did that on purpose. So
That's a good way to live your life.
yeah,
Make it look like you're doing it on purpose.
yeah, throw the ball first, and then say whatever you hit is the target. So here's the two levers that are kind of crisscrossed. I said 3 earlier. I think it's only 2, but the first one is the mallet coming down and then hitting this track up. The second one is what releases the first magnetic ball for the Newton's cradle. This is a magnet release. It's just the magnetic ball is attached to the magnet. The magnet moves out of the way, similar to the faucet in the kitchen. I was surprised by how much force the Newton's cradle
I wasn't
has.
expecting that either.
And this, the fifth ball still travels out a decent amount too. But the whole reason for this in
Things
general,
must be heavy.
they are pretty heavy. I mean, it's a very, very cheap plastic toy. The base is I had to fix this whole thing because it came unglued. But my hot glue is more secure than whatever glue came with the toy. So that's cool. But the whole reason for this existing in the first place is, one, I guess, to use the Newton's cradle because it's like a cool science toy, seems pretty themed, but also to get from this half of the table all the way over to the other half of the table with this whole rail system blocking the path. There's no way around it, so you have to go over it. And I didn't really want to do one of those things where you have a track fall into place and then get lifted out again, because it's just
Wait, once it goes through though, couldn't you just leave it down? 'Cause it
yeah,
doesn't
for
go down.
sure. But I want to do something a little more elegant than that you can't see coming.
Okay.
But you're right. I mean, yeah. I probably would have done that in a few years ago. I would have probably just had a Hot Wheels track fall down into place and then something roll over it. And there are ways to make that look good, but what I like to avoid, this is interesting, I haven't really thought about this. What I like to avoid is elements in machines that look like they're there only to solve a problem. I don't want anyone to look at a track or a connection or a string connection or anything and look at it and say, well, that was only there to solve a problem. If they see a track come down over a gap and then a ball rolls over it, my first reaction to that would be okay, he boxed himself in there, couldn't find a way out, and that was the best way to do it.
So you don't like that?
I don't necessarily. It's fine. I'm not bothered by it. I'm not going to go I hate this machine now if I see it. But I like to do my best to avoid it. And I'm not saying I'm perfect either. There's a lot of that in this, for sure. I mean, a lot of the weird connections that had to be made are all results of boxing myself into things. But we were touching on this a little bit earlier with the cup where the rubber band thing yanks it out and drops the ball in. Mm-hmm. Like I was talking about, the only thing that really needed to happen there was the ball needed to drop into the cup. What I could have done is had a track lead in, drop the ball, and then get it moved. But doing it this way, it looks like that's how it was designed the whole time. It doesn't even look like there was a problem that I fixed. Same thing here. This is just a trick where it launches the ball across. It doesn't look like I had to figure out a way to do something. It just looks like I had thought of this the whole time.
I see what you mean.
Yeah. And as if I can get away with something that looks fully intentional rather than only necessary to solve a problem, then I'll choose that solution over just a, kind of a sneaky way out. I'll choose something that looks more intentional, I guess. So, I guess you'd never look at this Newton's cradle launch, essentially, and say, oh, well, that's only there to get across the other side of the table. He really boxed himself in there. No, you're going to look at that and say, oh, that was planned all along.
I don't think anyone's thinking that in their heads.
Nobody's thinking either thing, let's be honest. But those who go into it and evaluate it,
If it helps, I didn't think that when I watched it the first time.
Great. I succeeded. You were probably just like, wait, what happened 5 seconds ago? But yeah, I mean, I guess that's an interesting thing. I mean, this is the first time I'm even thinking about that for real. But, so anyway, you know about the corn thing, right? The corn thing on Twitter? Oh, boy.
Wait, is it where someone photoshopped it?
Maybe.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about the fact that he'll just tweet the word corn followed by another word.
Oh, yeah, Michael did that, didn't he?
Yeah, that's
I saw that tweet. That was
he'll like every 4 to 5 months he'll just tweet like corn dog or like corn honk, corn town, and just like corn.
It's something.
Some word. It's always corn something, and it's just like I think the name of the game is just to be really random and just obscure, and totally pointless, and just to see how many likes it generates, just from complete absurdity. Like, it's a cool concept of just like how much appreciation can something with literally zero meaning get just because I have 1.1 million Twitter followers. And the answer is between 5,000 and 7,000 likes, which is kind of funny, I guess. And they get more ridiculous, but I threw the corn in there because it was just like a funny little joke. But the magnet thing is really a highlight. It's a bad view of it in the actual take. Here's a better version. But, let's go back to where it starts. Yep.
It's a nice printed image.
Yeah, I put it next to the corn because it's kind of like a joke. It's kind of like a funny photo. I mean, like a corn.
I wonder if even Michael realized while watching this that the corn was related to his tweets.
Honestly, I don't know. If he saw the corn, I would
because if he didn't get it, then like, are people watching?
I am positive that if he noticed the corn, he would know the connection to the tweet. I don't know if he noticed the corn. I don't think he would see the corn and go, I wonder what that means. I'm sure he would know, but the question is, did he notice? But this is a neat little magnetic ball lift. Basically, it's just those, you use these magnets, they're the same type.
Mine are weaker than yours, though.
Yeah, but you use them over there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So you're familiar with, like, the way they connect.
I should buy your brand.
I don't know what this brand is, but anyway, they naturally want to connect end to end. So these are kind of, it's a straight line of 4, and then 3 are folded on top. So they naturally want to go boing into a straight line. So the 2 underneath, they just need, or the 3 on top, they just get a little boost, and then they flick the rest of the way, and then they just carry the ball up.
That is pretty bizarre.
It's a strange motion.
That is.
Zoop.
That's something I never thought I'd see.
Yeah,
when I was born.
Wow, I've fulfilled a childhood dream. But yeah, I've been playing around with magnet motions quite a lot recently, and I did this one, and then like I did one at Domino World. There's like 2 magnet tracks that connect, and then I did 2 pretty much back to back in my Reactica machine. So I've been really interested in magnet motions lately, but
I'm having another like surreal moment of like,
what now?
I don't know. This is just surreal that I'm seeing this.
Yeah. I never thought I would see Michael Stevens staring back at me.
Staring back at me,
Yep.
buy some corn.
But this is a connection that I struggled with for a very, very long time, just from coming from the base of the corn up to this track here. Because I obviously have a very orthographic style where there's basically almost nothing that's diagonal to the table. Right? Like, obviously things are sloped, so if you look at it from this angle, like that way.
Orthographic. Wow, that's a good vocabulary.
Thank you. But yeah, everything's either parallel or perpendicular to the edges of the table, generally. And it's kind of fun to experiment with breaking those rules. But for the most part, it's easier to fit really compact stuff in when they're constrained to orthographic orientations. So what's tough about this connection to get from here to here is that it's not in the same plane in the x-axis, it's not in the same plane in the y-axis or the z-axis. So I have to both move left, move right, and move up to get to there.
Mm-hmm.
Which is not all that easy to do. So I needed something that would carry it this way, but also up and over. And I tried, I would say 3 to 4 different, entirely different ideas. Like there was a ball lift at one point, there was a launch at one point, all kinds of drastically different solutions from literally just getting 6 inches apart. And you wouldn't think that's hard to do, but for me it was, and I think I probably was just really ready to finish the machine. This was one of the last things I made, so I was getting impatient as well.
I don't think that's an easy task to do.
But it would be easy if I wasn't doing a one-ball path.
Oh, well, yeah.
Right? That was the other thing, is it has to be the same ball that goes from here to here.
Just moving things uphill, man.
Yeah.
It'll get you.
So after the magnet connection,
Up the corn.
yep, up the corn into here, and then the final trick, basically before the whole outro, is like this double tilting board thing. So it goes up the magnets, it's like, well, maybe it goes up twice. Rolls down once, twice, and double tilts. So this is basically just a way of using those letter blocks. These are the same letter blocks that spell out Pool Party Machine.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I have a whole box of these things. They're from like a game. But yeah, just those are Steve's straws as well. The same green straws. I got those when I was doing the Ellen project. I just stole a bunch of straws. And by stole, I mean asked if I could take them. But yeah, this is just a double tilt guy here. And then moving into the outro, everything kind of slows down. So the ball goes from a little bit faster to a little bit slower, and then really, really slow when it goes into the sky rail. And the rails get tighter and tighter each time as well.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the final resting position for the ball. And it's supposed to land on this little green pedestal thing, right? Which it does, but it's supposed to be a little cleaner than this. Notice it's like wobbling around there?
Oh, that's to be expected.
Is it though? Because look at the screen link clip for it. I think it's this one. It's just so clean in this. Oh, if I can play it.
Steve's back.
It's okay. Go ahead. Steve makes a cameo. But yeah, it's so much smoother in this one. Just kind of stays there and doesn't wobble around too much. There was one. there was one time when it did fail.
At the very end.
No, not during actual tests. When I was testing just the finale part, it did do that once. So, and I was just like, well, it'll never happen. I took that risk, and I'm not proud to say, but I did take that risk, and luckily it didn't actually happen. But it came uncomfortably close here when it's really wobbling around.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Yeah. But, luckily, pulled through. So this is another one of my ideas on the list. This is an off-table weight. It just requires a little bit of a nudge. It's like, I guess an off-balance weight or something. I don't remember what I called it, but all it requires is just this little tip, and then it just tips all by itself. So,
and as always.
Right. So it was really important for me to get the timing right here. Because I wanted it to have the same cadence as the way he typically says it, which is kind of like, and as always, thanks for watching. Like there's a little bit of a gap.
Uh-huh.
I wanted it to have that same kind of timing. So it turned out pretty much perfect. I wonder if it'll render fast enough to play at full speed, but it's like, and as always, thanks for watching. You know, it's after it buffered a few times, but it would have been basically perfect. So that was intentional for sure. And notice both of the messages are hidden in their initial state as well. This one's just hidden based on camera angle because you can't read it when it's facing away from the camera. This one's hidden by an actual
Does your hand
sign.
ever get shaky when it's working? Like, oh, at the very end?
I take pride in the fact that I'm very
Or do you
stable.
stay completely deadpan, just like
At
no
this-
emotion?
At this
invested?
point, I was freaking out, but I was really, really focusing on staying still. So here's this is the ball that rolls down, releases the car, and the video game. So this is obviously the recreation of the old outro. With like,
I missed that. Yeah.
well, yeah, he reaches in, squeezes it, and the slime comes out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the idea. And I couldn't decide for a very, very, very long time what I wanted the goal of the machine to actually be. This was an early idea of recreating the outro, because it makes a lot of sense. But the outro is done with 2 editing tricks. First, like the actual, like to just squeeze a cartridge, like it's there, and then it's like something else that gets squashed. And then also when the slime goes on the floor, it expands and then the logo shows up based on like a green screen effect.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just like, I'd love to recreate it, but how do I accomplish the squeeze and the message? We're very close, Steve. You said-
checking. I'm out of frame.
No, you're good.
Yeah, you're
Yeah, we're very close. So this was, I decided to make 2 compromises. One, it wouldn't really get squeezed. It would just stay there the whole time, and it wouldn't display a message. It would just be the slime. And I think having the slime come out of the video game cartridge is basically fine.
Yeah.
It it's iconic regardless. And then, printing this little message out and like making it look like the real thing, that helps.
I think that looks like exactly like
It's exactly the same.
you got the size right.
It's the same video game cartridge. I specifically wanted it
What
to
is
be
that?
exactly the same.
cartridge for.
It's NES, I'm pretty sure. I had to Google that. But yeah, it's exactly the same thing.
That feels weird that's even like a throwback.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like that long ago.
Right down to the little white arrow in the corner. And the recreation of the font, which had to be done basically from scratch.
You found that logo online?
Nope. I found the green splat, but I did not find the word sauce.
So you had to.
So I had to create the
type
word
it.
sauce.
You found the right font.
I found it. It's the same font that he always uses for titles like this, but it's a little bit squashed in the height and a little bit more. There's a little less space in between the characters. That's as close as I could get, but it's totally unnoticeable. But yeah, that's the goal. And the other thing I had to be very cautious about was never ever having an early trigger on the goal. As you can imagine.
I can't believe you even landed on the perfect spot, like right in the middle.
Yeah, that took some work as well. But I mean, obviously it would have been a miserable reset experience if the slime goes onto nothing and splashes everywhere and makes a huge mess, and it's impossible to reset, and you have to clean the funnel, and you have to get a new cup, and you have to clean the target, and you have to, oh my god, it'd be terrible. So I went through extra trouble to make sure that this would never ever early trigger. It's a very secure lever. It's a double domino weight, even though it doesn't need it. It doesn't need that much weight. It's just to provide more stability to make sure it never goes early and all that. But yeah, it's centered in the exact right spot. And I did multiple tests of this on this white table over here of trying to figure out where the exact spot is that it would land. But the other thing too is the slime is actually just paint. It's like kids paint, like you'd find in like a classroom, mixed with a little bit of water to make it more liquidy. And it turned out in both of my tests, the first one was just paint, it was too viscous. The second test I added too much water, it was too liquidy and it splashed everywhere. This one, I'm pretty sure it's the perfect, I know it's the perfect amount of water, but I'm pretty sure some of the water evaporated over time, so it actually was a little bit more viscous than I intended, and that ended up being the perfect amount. So
Yeah.
it would have been worse if I had had it the way I designed it. strangely enough. And yes, this is very intentional about the placement of the ball. This is the first time, this take is the first time I had ever seen the slime fall onto a ping pong ball.
Oh, you just been guessing based on the
I had
location?
been completely blindly guessing about what it would even look like for the slime to fall on top of a ball. I knew that it would look, I was hoping that it would look exactly like this.
Going around all sad.
Exactly like this. When I saw it in real life, I just about burst into tears. I was just like, it's exactly what I wanted it to look like. And it was perfect. The perfect viscosity of the slime, the perfect effect of it just encapsulating it entirely, and zero splash whatsoever. It doesn't even touch this little sky rail track next to it. It just wraps around it perfectly. Doesn't even touch it. Beautiful. And I could not have asked for a better slime. You can say better angle here. It just encapsulates it perfectly.
Did you save it like that?
I did. I have the ball. Yeah.
Like, it kind of looks like a little trophy now.
It is. Yeah. So
Did it dry like that?
Yep. Well, it kind of. So it's mostly green except for a little circle at the bottom where it's on the pedestal. But it doesn't even touch the sky rail. It's just beautiful. And then all of it lands within the dish, this tiny little dish.
Wait, how did you have a second camera?
I did actually have to go through the trouble of resetting it just to get the screen link clip.
Okay.
So this had to be unglued, cleaned entirely. The slime had to be reset. That's a different ball. Because like I said, I went to the Brain Candy show and they just launched him into the audience. So I grabbed like 6 or 7. So I had enough to make this, I had enough extras to make this alternate angle for it. So this is a totally different ball than actually used in the machine. But it looks exactly the same, which is all that matters. So this one I think I ended up actually cleaning pretty soon after because it's just regular washable paint. So this one's normal now. But the other one, the actual one that I used in the machine, is I'm keeping that as a trophy. But yeah. That's everything, I'm pretty sure. Anything else you want to add?
No. I think that about covers it.
All right. Well, thank you for watching this episode of Making Connections. As always, if you'd like to watch the entire episode, you can find it in your subscriptions feed or on my channel page for the next week. After that, the only way to find it is in the Making Connections playlist. The link for that is in the description. Thank you again to Doodle Chaos for joining me today, and as always, if you like the video, leave a comment down below telling me what you thought, and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Anyway, that's it for me. I hope you enjoyed the show, and as always, thanks for watching. No, just kidding. And as always, I will see you in the next episode of Making Connections.